Hello, Grand Strand. This is Richard Florzak, the private chef to the stars, and welcome back to Talking About Food. We had off last week. And don't forget, this is the only food commentary show on the Grand Strand where we talk about restaurants, food trucks, festivals, farmers markets. I love interviewing local chefs and local restaurant owners. From time to time, I have some of my celebrity friends on. You may have heard Mel Gibson a couple months ago. Well, whether celebrity or not, the topic is always food. It's amazing how many people, some celebrity types that'll ask to come on and they'll say, I don't know that much about food, but the second they come on and you start asking them questions, it's like it opens up a floodgate. I have with me in the studio today somebody very special. We just met, but I've been to his restaurant a number of times, and it's extra special to me because you may have heard me say before, even though I worked for a number of celebrities, after that, I sort of followed my dream and I opened up a wood-fired pizzeria because pizza has always been my absolute favorite food on the planet. And you may have heard me talk about how I've always been so amazed that these three ingredients, bread, sauce, and cheese, any of those combinations just affect me in such a positive way. I don't care how bad or how good it is. Those combinations I just love them. But anyway, I had the most difficult time in my restaurant with my dough. I followed the traditional Neapolitan style, wood-fired pizza, very hydrated dough, and used flour from the Naples region. And my dough would come out perfect every single time for about a month. And I'd watch every pizza come out of that wood-fired oven with the most beautiful char and a nice carriage. And I'd run that pizza cutter through the crust and it would crunch and you could look into the crust because that is beautiful. They call it the crumb inside. It had these beautiful big bubbles. And then the next batch was like a flippin' frozen pizza that I got from the local Kroger. And with that, it used to drive me nuts. I would say, how difficult can this be? It's flour, water, yeast, and salt. Yet it drove me absolutely bananas. Anyway, when I walked into this gentleman's pizzeria, because I had heard so much about it, and I was watching him work, I didn't tell him who I was. I just wanted to taste their pizza. Blew me away. The crust blew me away. And I'm so glad he would take the time to come in to talking about food. His name is Anthony Ludovici DeBrigida, and he is the chef and owner of Anto's Pizza Romana, an Italian market in Conway. Anthony, welcome to Talking About Food.
Thanks for having me.
Man, I am so glad you probably don't know this, but when I first started talking about food 26 or 7 episodes ago, I had made this pact where I was going to have, because pizza is my favorite thing on the planet, I was going to have a pizzeria commentary every week. But I had to like it. Yep. I wasn't going to, I'm not going to critique anybody. I've been over this, criticize anybody. I've been over this a million times, but what was happening was I was starting to go to 3 or 4 pizzerias that I didn't like, so I couldn't talk about them. But anyway, I was going to do one a week for 52 weeks, and at the end of that, choose my favorite. You're the first pizzeria owner that I've had on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh no, because I just like Anto so much. So for the listeners, how did you get started in this business?
Yeah, so really just family. I had that was my first job when I was a kid, working in the pizza shop. I was a server, started doing dishes. I worked at another pizza shop where I was, doing deliveries, working the counter. Eventually.
Did your family have a pizzeria?
Oh yeah.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have family that's had them since they came over from Italy and started as a kid in there, and then got a pizza shop with my uncle shortly after high school. And then
And where is this?
That's Philadelphia area. Yeah. And then I actually got out of it to go to Florida and go to school. And I got out of it, did, a marine science thing for about 7 years and then got back into pizza.
Yeah, that's a nice stepping stone to
From pizza to dolphins, back to pizza.
That's right, dolphin pizza. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So you went to school in Florida. Why Florida?
Really, I was just like, after doing pizza for a while, I was like, I think I want to work with sea turtles. I just kind of flipped a gear and was like, I'm going to try and go to school, and I always wanted to work with sea turtles because they were my favorite. And there was this turtle hospital that was in the Florida Keys.
Wow.
Yeah. So did that. And I went to the turtle hospital and they were like, we don't really need any volunteers or anything. So I already picked the school and was pretty much already about to start school in a couple weeks. And there was a dolphin facility that I started volunteering at. And I just kind of walked in and they said they'd take me as a volunteer. And then a few months later offered me a job. And I did that for a decade. You know?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that long.
Up until this past summer, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. But I was also bartending at night.
Yeah.
And I was bartending at the sports bar that was right next door. And this couple bought that bar and they were like, hey, everyone says we need good pizza. We know you did that. Would you,
wow.
If we open a shop, do that? So that's what got me back into the game.
Yeah.
And then, I met my wife while we were in Florida at the Dolphin facility and she went to Coastal. She's from Jersey, but went to Coastal.
Yeah.
And we were talking about leaving Florida. We didn't want to go all the way back home. We were kind of looking at this area. So we're like, hey, we just opened a shop for somebody else. Might as well see if we could do it ourselves. So that's what kind of got us back in here. And this is like my first, me and my cousin Mikey, who moved from the Philly area down to Charleston. We partnered up and opened this place up.
Open Anto's. Mm-hmm. How did you end up in South Carolina?
I had never been here really, but my wife going to Coastal, she still had a lot of friends, and which became my friends and in the area, and we kind of came to check it out. And I, liked the area. Figured, we could try and do our pizza because what we wanted to do, we didn't really see anybody that was doing that style, in the area. So we kind of just hoped it would work.
Right. Which I can't wait to get into your style.
Mm-hmm.
Why Conway?
So I had never thought of Conway, never heard of Conway. And my wife was actually kind of surprised about Conway too. So funny enough, she was also working at a bar in the Keys and she had a couple people go into her bar the one day and she's like, oh, where are you from? Bup, bup, bup. And they're like, oh, Myrtle Beach. And she's like, oh, I know a bunch of people in Myrtle Beach. Well, it comes to find out that one guy is a realtor. So he's like, well, my husband's actually going up to look at spots because we're trying to open a pizza shop up there. Can I give him your info? We end up getting, each other's information. And he was like, all right, I got a list of some spots that are available. Come check them out. I told him we were looking at Myrtle, Surfside, Pawleys, around there, Myrtle's Inlet, because my mother-in-law's best friend lives in the inlet. So we were looking around there and I looked at a couple spots. We didn't really see anything we liked. And he's like, oh, well, I got a spot in Conway that's going to be available. I had no idea anything about Conway, but, my wife wasn't with me for the trip. So she had left Conway about 7 years prior. And, there wasn't a ton going on, then. So I went and looked at the location. I was like, oh, this seems like there's a decent amount going on, And she's like, all right,
And that's how long ago? Because you've been open for a year now, right?
It's not even 7 months.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. We opened a week before Halloween.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when did you actually find the location? How long ago?
That was probably about a year ago.
A year ago.
Yeah.
So then it took you 3-4 months to go through all of the red tape and everything.
Yeah, I probably came up. I was still living in Florida. I came up to sign the papers June last year.
Did you know at that time that Conway was a burgeoning restaurant?
Just from people I talked to in the realtor, he's like, hey, a lot more people are moving here, and talking to friends because we have, still one of our good friends born and raised there, saying that there's a lot more, people coming to the area and just going to look at the spot. It seemed like it's downtown right next to the courthouse.
It's a
great area.
Great area.
Yeah,
Was it a restaurant before?
It was like a Southern food.
Yeah, so you had a kitchen, but you had to bring in the deck ovens and stuff.
Yeah, so they had pretty much the opposite of the equipment that we needed. They had a bunch of fryers. They had these warming boxes. They had a grill. So we got rid of just about everything, had to bring all our stuff in. But the bones were there. You know, they had the walk-in, they had the hood system, they had the countertop, you know, a bunch of the tables, chairs, all that stuff.
If you don't mind me asking, and I don't need to know exact figures or anything like that, was it expensive to open?
Not, it wasn't terrible. I mean, for what you think it would be to start, you know, a new business, you know.
Did it help that there was a restaurant there?
Oh, for sure.
Right.
That's because we were looking at empty spots and we're like, you know, you don't think about that until you're in it. And it's like, this is a bare bones. Like, this
that's
is
what
just
I
a square.
did. It cost a fortune. I wish I could do it all over again.
We got very lucky with where we picked, because although we didn't use a lot of the equipment, just the price of what they had there, it's like, okay, we can sell this, put this towards what we're going to need. It already had plumbing, electric. It was already, you know, we have electric deck ovens.
Yeah.
We need a 3-phase, you know, so it was already 3-phase set up to the building. So we got very lucky in those aspects where it was not really turnkey. We had to do some work there, but it could have been much, much worse.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the different styles that you serve. If you could explain to the listeners, because even when I went in, it took me a second to understand what you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a round pie. I'd call it a New York style. It's a little different than a traditional New York style. You know, New York is like you hold it out. It's just a firm, you know, crispy, you know, straight. I would just, if I could go back, I would just call it a round pie. You know, it's closer to a New York, but I would say if you've had it kind of in between a New York and a Neapolitan, would you think?
Well, next on my list of questions was, I feel it's a hybrid.
Yes.
It's a hybrid of Neapolitan and New York, right?
Exactly.
I love this. This is so great, which sort of goes against the grain of me looking for the best New York pizza, which is not really what I'm doing. I'm looking for the best pizza, and yours is certainly one of them. I'm so glad that you agree with me. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
And what made me think of that, first of all, when I came in, what I do all the time is I order what I call a plain pizza, right? Because if I'm going to judge a pizza, and I see other people doing this, and it just doesn't make sense to me. They'll go in and they'll order it with like a dozen toppings on it. It's like, how the heck can you tell what the pizza's all about? So anyway, I order plain sauce and cheese. You put some fresh basil on it. I take it, I go and I sit in my car and I eat it, right? And normally I'll have like a slice just to taste. I ate 3 slices on the way home, and I could not get over that crust. You were replicating in an electric oven what I was trying to do every day in a wood-fired Neapolitan style.
Yeah.
And what do you attribute that to? Because I know sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I did know when I went home, I just like dove into your website and was looking, and I'm saying, wait a minute, he's using 00, but he's doing it in a deck oven.
Yep.
Right? That has something to do with it, right?
Yeah. Everything. So like I said, if I could go back, I would definitely not call it New York style. It is a round pie. But we use a lot of olive oil. I use our dough is actually 50% Biga starter, so it's more like a sourdough.
Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Explain to the listeners what a Biga starter is.
Okay, so a Biga is similar to a sourdough pizza, so it's very similar to that. Whereas a sourdough starter, you take it, you feed it every day, and then you use it. A Biga is a starter that you make fresh every day and put that entire thing, once it sits, about 16 to 18 hours into the dough.
If you used the sourdough version, would you get similar results in the texture?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
because that's what I did.
The texture, and it's like you said, it's close to a Neapolitan. I'm very high hydration for a New York, quote unquote.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm about close to 70% hydration.
And you cook them at what temperature?
About 600.
600. Yeah.
So I use that. I don't really, a lot of people use a decent amount of sugar in their New York style doughs.
And you?
I use a tiny bit of sugar, but I use diastatic malt powder instead. So it's a browning agent, but not sugar.
Yeah.
So it's better for the structure. Obviously, it's not sugar, so it's a little bit better for you. But between that, the high percentage of Biga that we have, so the dough is, like I said, 50% starter, so a high percentage starter.
Yeah.
So you get that longer fermentation feel in a shorter amount of time. And, it's a 00 wheat flour. We actually combine 2 separate flours. So
I saw that.
Yeah. So
why is that, if I may ask?
So people make pizza however, whatever they want from the pizza. So when I was growing up, it was, this is how you make your dough. You fill it to this line, you do that. I got my Pizzaiolo certification from like the Italian School of Pizza, and that is 75% about the chemistry of the dough. Yeah. So once you learn the chemistry of the dough, you know what each ingredient does, so you know how to adjust it to get whatever you want from your dough. So some people want just a thin, crispy dough. Me, I'm all about the like structure within the crust. I'm about like the taste and the texture more so rather than just getting a crispy pizza. So for me, the one flour that we use is for long fermentations and for structure. It's called Nuvola Super Cloud in Italian. The other one I use is the Americana. So it's Caputo is the Italian flour company. Right. It's a 00 wheat. That's their, New York style dough, quote unquote. It's still a 00 wheat flour, but that is their high protein dough. So I combine the two to get that high protein flour, but also combining it with the Nuvola Super, which gives it that structure. And I use that. It's good for bigas or any dough with a long fermentation. So since ours is such a high percentage starter, I combine some of that flour in with it to kind of give it that nice cloudiness and like cloudy feeling in the crust, that structure.
Yeah, I see.
So a little bit different than the traditional New York. But
how long did it take you to get that chemistry figured out?
So we've been open about 7 months, so I'd say about 6.5 months.
Oh, so you've been working on it while you're open. Yeah, what a bunch of guinea pigs we are. I love it. Wow, that's a good thing. Okay, let's move on to this water thing because I'm not totally convinced of it, but I'm certainly not going to argue with success either. I had Chef Jeff Blunt. He's a He's in Conway as well. He owns LeVay Bakery.
Oh, yeah.
And he was on, fascinating guy. And he's sort of on my side. He doesn't believe that the water makes that much difference. You explain to the listeners your water system, filtration system that you have.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with a few people about this.
And before you go any further, like I said earlier, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm telling you.
Yeah. So we use, it's from a company called New York Water Maker. So what they have, it's more of a water filtration and replication system. So what it does is that when you first, I use the same system in Florida. And wherever you are in the country, you take a water sample, you send it up to them. They see what they have to adjust to add a certain amount of minerals or take certain minerals away from your water to make it minerally identical to New York water. So what they do is they take, I think it's the Brooklyn area. So that water there is filtered through the Catskills. There's a certain hardness level, a certain calcium content, everything in the water that they replicate with your system. So the Conway water will go into the system. There's filters, UV light. There's a sand, like a tank with a bunch of sand in it that filters everything out. And the output, there's one output. It goes to our prep sink. So we use this for all of our doughs, our sauce. It also goes to our ice machine because I use a ton of ice in our dough. I use very cold water for our dough.
Well, to slow down the fermentation?
So I use a spiral mixer, and I mix for a very long time. So as you use that mixer, it's going to heat that dough. So I want to keep the temperature of the dough down.
How long does it rise, if I may ask?
So our Roman dough rises for 3 days. It's a 72-hour fermentation for our Roman-style dough. Our New York's, since it is 50% biga, it's 2 days cold ferment in the fridge, but it's really 3 days with the starter pretty much. So you're getting that 3 days, feel out of a 2-day dough. Yeah. And sometimes like when we were first, we'd make a dough at midnight the night before and use it at 10 o'clock the next morning and still be okay because it's, that much of a starter.
And getting the results you wanted.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, ideally you'd like to let it sit another day, but I was still, we didn't really have a choice.
Well, it's good to know that there's another pizza maker, a successful pizza maker that was sort of learning as you went.
Yeah.
So
well, I like I said, I've this was all new to me. The flour, obviously working in pizza and doing it for a while, I didn't really I had the idea of what I wanted from my dough and what I wanted the pizzas to come out like, but it was kind of just adjusting salt levels, olive oil, starter percentage, temperature that I wanted, how much ice I wanted to use, all these little things that, take into account, how long you want it to ferment for in the fridge, how long you want it to sit out. There was just a million things, how it is that you go through to test until you're like, this is the dough that I want,
Would you say that you're pretty much spot on now? Or are you still adjusting?
For myself, Yeah, I'm sure.
So what you serve now is what somebody who is going to eat a year from now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same with the Romans. I just, and like I said, I make pizza how I like to eat pizza. I hope people enjoy it as well. But, this is what my goal was, with the dough.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. That is so cool. And I noticed you use Stanislaus tomato products, which is one of my favorite. I said before once on the show that I always knew I was going to open a wood-fired pizzeria, even when I was working for Mel Gibson. And when we were in Rome, when he was doing The Passion, I was collecting canned tomatoes all over, all over Italy, and I brought them back with me. And I ended up settling on Cento, which I could buy, at the local market. But yeah, that's cool stuff. Tell us about the upside down pizza and how that came about.
Yeah, so the upside down pizza is it's called our Pop Ron pizza. So that's named after my pop. His favorite, pizza shop around us was Santucci's Pizza. So Santucci's was a pizzeria in the Northeast Philly. And what they did, they had like a square pie, like a Sicilian, and their traditional pie was sliced fresh mozzarella first and then the sauce on top. Yeah. So it was an upside down pie. So that's what we do. We called it the Pop Ron, and it's kind of based on that pizza from those guys.
Yeah. You're getting a lot of attention, I notice. Mm-hmm. So you're happy with your customers?
Yeah.
He sort of hesitates. And the reason, folks, that he hesitated is because off air we were talking about some of our nightmare customers that we've had, certainly in my restaurant in Los Angeles, but in his is here, and how we should or shouldn't handle them. Maybe
I will say this though: 99% of the customers are phenomenal. Like I have customers that I see every single day. Whether I have regulars that come in, whether they're there every day, but I see different regulars every day, and it's like I've grew up here and have had the shop for 20 years. Yeah. So like a majority of the customers, I think bringing a different kind of pizzeria to the area that a lot of people weren't familiar with kind of brought a lot of attention that was, I wouldn't say negative, but it took people some getting used to, like, this is what they're doing. I wanted to bring a real mom and pop shop feel to the area, and people weren't used to that. Like, they sell out. It's a very long line because they have one guy making pizzas and he can cook 3 at a time.
This is one of those things. My nephew is in the restaurant business. He's I call him a restaurant mogul in Dallas. He's the CEO of a restaurant conglomerate there. And we talk about stuff like this all the time, stuff that you're not going to learn in culinary school. But there are one in particular pizzeria where I grew up in a little small town in New Jersey, where when they got busy, we all knew it. The town knew it. When they got busy, if you called, they just took the phone off the hook. But here's the dilemma with that kind of thing. I said that one time in my pizzeria in Los Angeles when the servers were coming and they're like, we're just overwhelmed. I said, take the phone off the hook. We got bad Yelp reviews. Here I get bad reviews, but the little shop in New Jersey, right, that was part of the charm.
Yeah.
So when you say, that there was a line out the door in Anto's Pizzeria in Conway, that people were annoyed with that, that's like a Cadillac problem,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And 9 out of 10 people will be like, that's a great problem to have. And I'm like,
sure. There you go. 9 out of 10 people.
And that's what it is. And that's how it's been since we've opened. 9 out of 10 is the best, but it was, always that one that for me, and I'm sure for you, you've had this before. For me, I'm like, I can have 99 people tell me this is the best pizza I ever had, but that one person that's screaming and yelling, I'm like going to think about that for the next 3 days.
I can't believe it's like you heard one of my previous shows where I've said that a million times. A person gives me a 2-star review and I think about it all day. Give me a 1-star review and I'm up all night. Mm-hmm. But I did notice one thing. This is in reference to Yelp. It took me a couple of months to learn this, and thank God, like you, 99% of the people I had in, they just loved it. But that one that gives you the one star review, what I learned was look up their other reviews, and the
yeah.
chances are they're mostly not. It must suck to be people like that.
Yeah.
So tell us about your Las Vegas challenge.
Yeah.
That really blew me away when I saw that.
Oh, that was a lot. Now I can say it's fun. It was not fun.
No,
leading up to it. I mean, it was.
How does that work? I mean, they have deck ovens there for you?
Oh, they got a row of ovens. This is probably the biggest, I would say, definitely the biggest pizza show in the country, one of the biggest in the world. They have 500 people that come from all over the world to compete.
Yeah.
Just a line of ovens, and you have, it's just kind of mayhem. You got people, you have your little station, and they're just all day, they're just, one person's done, bring the next person in. You got a certain amount of time to make your pizza, get it in the oven.
Yeah.
Get the settings to whatever you want. And that was my first time in any competition ever. I've never competed in anything before.
So my assumption is you were scared to death.
Oh, terrified.
Yeah. Yeah. Had you been to Vegas before?
I went a couple years prior to the Pizza Expo. I didn't compete or anything.
Oh, you got an idea what it was like.
Slightly. I mean, we didn't really, because since I wasn't competing, there's like the show floor, where there's maybe hundreds of little booths from everything from ovens to POS systems to anything you can imagine.
Right.
Boxes, anything. And then there's a separate area where the competition is. So we didn't spend too much time over there because I was,
Yeah, you weren't in it at that time.
No.
So you show up. Do you bring your own ingredients? How does that work?
So we were extremely unprepared this time. Like I said, it was our first one, and I had the idea that we were much later in the week as far as our competition. I get the schedule out a week before, and I'm like, okay, we're competing, like we're landing in Vegas Monday night. We're competing first thing Tuesday. So I'm like,
whoa.
Yeah. So, instead of being able to make our dough there, now we're bringing dough with us. Now I'm reaching out to companies, and they're like, yeah, come, you can grab our stuff Monday at our booth. And I'm like, well, I won't be there till Monday night, So I ended up checking a bag with all the tomatoes from Italy, all of our dough stuff. I ended up bringing everything just with me. But now I know for next year that, I can just reach out to those companies and get there a couple days early and, actually be prepared.
So how did you do the dough? Did you make it there?
I brought it with me from
here. You brought it with you?
I had
in
dough
a
everywhere.
Suitcase.
I had dough in a suitcase. I had dough that was, checked under the plane. I had dough I was carrying dough. I was in my carry-on. It was a mess. So that was the first and last time.
In all seriousness, how was the dough when you arrived?
I wasn't happy with it. We didn't do terribly, in the competition, but I know that like if I had a fresh dough, we would have been like if I would have made it there, which I will do next year. That I think we would have been.
Were you hoping to win, or were you doing it the first time just for the experience?
No, I'm a little delusional. Yeah, I was expecting to walk in there and win my first competition with people from all over the world that are like the best at what they do. But I was, my wife talked me off the ledge after we got the results. Like that's very good. And my old instructor from my Pizzaiola certification was there, and he hyped me up. He was like, it was like the last day, and I'm sulking for 2 days after everything. And he's like, that's like. You just got the 6th best Roman pizza in the world. Like you should be like happy.
Is that right?
Yeah, we got it's people from all over the world, and we got 6th in Roman, 24th in the Pan division. So
wow.
Yeah, it was cool. And they break you into different divisions and stuff. So that's where we finished. But so yeah, it was. I was happy with it, but there's that little thing in the back of your head where when I signed up, like I'm just happy to compete, get the experience under my belt, and then I'm like. We don't win this thing. It's not going to be not sleep the rest of this trip. But that's just how I am. It's a blessing and a curse for sure.
Without a doubt. Will you do it next year?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was already thinking about when I was still there. I was thinking about what we were going to do for next year. So, we're actually looking at another competition at the end of September in Rome.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, have you been there?
No.
Yeah.
No, the last time I was in Italy a couple years ago, we were around in Napoli.
Yeah.
Around there. We were in Amalfi. That's where I got married.
Yeah. Amalfi.
So, yeah.
Wow.
We got married. My wife and I got married in Positano.
Wow.
So that was nice.
So Anthony of Anto's Pizza Romana and Italian Market, off the air, you were explaining to me that your wife works with you at the restaurant. How does that work out?
Good, great. Most of the time, obviously I'd be lying if I said, we never butt heads, but it's great.
Does she make pizzas as well?
She does not. She handles like front of the house stuff. I handle back of the house stuff.
So if you get one of those irate customers, it's going to be her that's handling it?
Yeah. And she's going to do everything she can so that I don't
So you don't hear it?
Yeah. She's much more level-headed than I am.
Yeah, because she knows what'll happen if you hear it. Has that happened before?
Yes, it has. When we first opened, she kind of puts herself in front of the situation, but it was only one time where someone was extremely rude to her and I tried to step in, but thankfully nothing happened from that.
And she wouldn't let you. Yeah. So is it safe to say you're like the more high-strung one? You're focused. You got to pay attention to what you're doing, and you don't really have time for a lot of small talk. And she, would you say, is like the opposite?
Yeah, I'm like as soon as I get there in the morning, hours before we open, I'm like on 100 because there's a million things to do, and I'm that way until we close and ready to to close up. So I'm very much go,
right?
Thinking of a million things, and she is very much so the level-headed one that kind of brings everyone down as I'm stressing everybody out.
Yeah, that's certainly a nice chemistry to have, especially when it's your wife helping you because you know that she's got your best interest in mind. I ask just about every chef that comes on the show, what is the one food that you like to indulge in every once in a while that you'd be embarrassed for other chefs to find out? I had Adam Kirby on a couple weeks ago, and I pulled it out of him. He loves Cheese Whiz.
Cheese Whiz.
Are there foods that you can think of? I love hamburger helper lasagna.
So I like, I'm not sure if this even qualifies, but there's these Italian baby biscuits called Plasmon cookies. And they're my favorite.
Yeah.
They're for babies, literally. But I still like
that. What is that? Wasbeck or something like that?
I guess they're like almost like puffs, but they're like vanilla wafers. I don't know.
It's like what little kids are like, almost like teething on.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't eat them. They just make them wet.
They dissolve, because you can't choke on them.
And that's your indulgence.
I guess that
love
would
it.
be it.
See that, folks? We could be famous chefs, but we're still human. That is priceless. I love it. What's next for you?
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it. This is, what's next is to, pay off the rest of the stuff at the shop, try and get another day off maybe, and just work on our craft. Keep competing. That's, what our goal when we opened the shop was not, like I always say this to the people on Facebook, we're not trying to be like the biggest pizza shop and open a dozen of them. Like we just want to have our shop be able to work for ourselves. And, personally, I'd like to compete and, get more into that area. But, now it's just, like I said, we're 7 months in. So I've been just getting it off the ground. And
there's a couple handfuls of some pretty popular restaurants in Conway. Have they been welcoming to you?
Yeah, for the most part. Speaking of Vegas, Darren Smith from Rivertown Bistro, he helped me me and him make a pizza every week, every other week. He'll come down, get a bottle of wine, bring a bottle of wine, and we'll cook up some crazy stuff. Because, my strength is the dough and, all the basic toppings. His is like, his mind works in a whole nother way. I never really pictured myself as a chef. I'm like a pizza guy, so where my strength is the dough and everything, his strength is everything else.
Well, I can't tell you, living and working in Los Angeles for so many years, when I opened Flame Pizzeria, I had a number of graduates from the local culinary schools come, and it got to the point where I didn't even want to hire them anymore because they acted as though pizza was beneath them.
Yeah.
And boy,
that's crazy.
Did they learn a lesson real quick. His name is Anthony Ludovici DeBrigida, and he is the chef and owner of Anto's Pizza Romana, an Italian market in Conway. Folks, he's the first pizziola I've had on the show from one of the pizzerias that I talked about that I really like. Don't walk, run to this place. This is fabulous, fabulous pizza. And Anthony, I know what it's like to run a business, especially a pizzeria. I can't thank you enough for coming in, taking the time, and I would love to have you back sometime.
I'd love to come back. Thanks for having me.
Well,
I should have brought a pie. I wasn't. Thanks for doing this after we close. I was going to come in the morning.
Yeah, no worries whatsoever. Trust me, I'll be over to see you many times. Anto's Pizza Romana, an Italian market in Conway. Welcome back to Talking About Food. That was Anthony Ludovici DeBrigida. He's the owner of Anto's Pizza Romana, an Italian market over in Conway. Man, that guy, he's a scientist as well as a very fine pizza maker. And speaking of very fine, we have one of my favorite guests in the studio today. You've heard her before. She is the content food creator, Sophia Edens, and she's back with a bunch of restaurants to talk about. I'm so glad you're here. Sophia, welcome back to Talking About Food.
Always glad to be talking about food with you.
Well, I'm always glad to be talking about food, period, and I think that's how you are too. So lay it on us. What are some of I mean, you're out there all the time.
Oh, yes.
And if some of the listeners, some of my 2 million listeners have heard some of the other episodes that she's been on, she has this thing that she likes to go, for the most part, 3 times to a restaurant. I've said it before. I wish reviewers would have given me that opportunity when I owned a restaurant. So it's a cool thing. She does that. But she also will talk about a restaurant, even though she hasn't been there 3 times, is in the process of being there 3 times, but maybe hasn't made up her mind completely if she likes it or not. But certainly, I mean, you could, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes you can tell. Is that possible?
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
First visit?
First visit, I can tell by the vibes, the people, how I'm greeted, the people that are actually there. I'll talk to them at the bar sometimes, and
the guests in the restaurant.
Yeah. I like to see how often they like to visit this place, or if this is their first time.
Right.
And the ones that I picked out to talk about today, a lot of locals like to go to these places.
Let me ask you your opinion on something. So the other day, I think it was something that I showed up in, a post on Facebook, and somebody commented, I won't be able to quote verbatim by any means, but it was like, I'm sick of these foodies. What the heck do they know? Food is subjective, and, you may like it, I don't, so give it up, or something like that. How do you feel about a response like that?
It, of course, is subjective, but the execution is not.
Yeah, I think I replied to that. I don't know why. I don't usually reply to stuff like that. It just seemed like such an angry person. All we're doing is having some fun.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about it afterwards. Does that mean that there should be no more film critics?
No.
What about Broadway show critics?
Absolutely.
What about
not.
that world famous site, Consumer Reports? Right?
Yeah.
There's people giving opinions on that. So anyway, must suck to be him.
I will say, in my opinion, after doing a lot of research, there's definitely a difference between product promotion and genuine review.
Yeah.
We are the consumers. We are going to report on if we liked this place or this product. But I do think there is an influx of product promotion.
Yeah.
Especially in the foodie community.
Yeah.
And that's not just here in Myrtle Beach or along the Grand Strand. That's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think we should maybe tap into our roots a little bit and start learning and talking about more honesty as opposed to product promotion. I mean, we like to buy things. We are consumers, but we don't like to be pushed to buy things.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a tipping point with that. I don't have a problem with pushing a product. I mean, they're a business like any other business, and if you follow my logic, you could have a gazillion different foodies posting stuff on the internet and end up discovering that there's a handful of foodies that have the same taste that you do.
Yes.
Right? Just
yes.
like I said before with film critics, right? There may be a film critic out there, and I mean, I don't go to many movies anymore, but when I did when I was younger, if I saw a critic, a specific critic give his review of a film, I knew right away I didn't want to go see it because I didn't like the guy or woman, and I didn't like the styles of film that they liked. So I'm assuming it's the same with the foodie world. So anyway, listen, drop some of these restaurants on us. I want to hear about it, and I know the listeners do too. What do you got for us?
First on the list, a classic for me and my family, Buoys on the Boulevard in North Myrtle.
Buoys on the Boulevard.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about that.
The vibes are very dive bar-esque. Yeah. They have...
You've got me hooked already.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Right on the beach, Main Street, North Myrtle. Very classic spot to go to. A lot of fun. They've got live musicians, usually giant Jenga sets, so you can have fun and, while you're waiting for your food or your table.
Right.
But I usually kind of stick to the appetizer menu there.
Yeah, like what?
I love their burgers, but I will say their trio appetizer is definitely my favorite.
Hold on. Before you go there, you said the magic word. Burgers. Yeah. So quickly tell me about their burgers. What do you like about them?
Off the top of my head, my favorite one is the Krabby Weldon.
What is that?
It is a crab cake on top of a burger patty.
Oh my God.
It's amazing.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible.
All right. Tell us about the appetite. A crab cake on a burger. It's like...
with like a creamy aioli. It's really delicious.
It sounds great. The appetizer you were about to say.
Trio appetizer, you've got the shag and shrimp with it, which is their take on the bang bang boom boom shrimp.
Yeah.
I usually do not like this appetizer.
Why?
It's usually soggy.
Okay.
And it's cheap. It's usually just a cheap sauce. I can tell right away. I usually don't go for it.
Yeah.
But here at Buoys, it's crispy, it's light, it's refreshing. It's served on a bed of lettuce. Mm-hmm. So it's nice when the product they're placing underneath to elevate the dish, usually as a view. It's nice to actually eat it and enjoy it with the shrimp.
Yeah, I could go into this for an hour. And even I was so glad that when Adam Kirby was on, he said, if you're not eating it, it shouldn't be on the dish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I eat it like a shrimp salad, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Next one in that Trio app is their grouper bites. Yeah. And again, same thing. I usually don't pick fried fish because it's usually so soggy.
Yeah.
And here it's light and crispy, flaky. And then the final one included is fried okra. And until moving down to South Carolina, I've never had okra.
Me too.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And another one, just to highlight it, it's not part of the trio, but their coconut shrimp is beyond my favorite in the area. Again, it's just light and crispy, and they serve it with this raspberry Melba sauce, and it's just really amazing.
What does that taste like?
Very sweet, almost like your favorite jam that you like to put on a biscuit.
Yeah.
But it's smooth. It's just really decadent.
Yeah.
And I like it because usually coconut shrimp is served with an orange marmalade.
Yeah.
So it was nice to get something different.
And these are all appetizers except for the burger.
Except for the burger.
Yeah, except for the burger. So you can go there, sit at the bar and have this?
Yes.
Oh, that's
And I
cool.
usually do.
Yeah.
Or I'll sit outside at one of their picnic tables, listen to the live music.
Yeah. And where are they located?
Right at the end of Main Street in North Myrtle Beach.
Okay. All right. What else you got? Wait a second. Say the name again.
Buoys on the Boulevard.
Buoys on the Boulevard. Okay. North Myrtle, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Next.
Another one to highlight in North Myrtle. Same deal. It's right at the tip of Main Street. It's Main Street Tap House. They have and people, I'm going to stop myself. People might argue with me about the best crab cakes on the Grand Strand.
Oh boy, you're opening up a door.
And I'm from Maryland. I'm from Ocean City. So I've been around a few times, even in my own home making crab cakes from scratch.
Wow.
And I can tell you what, I haven't found any other place that does it like this.
Main Street
Tap House.
Yeah. What is that atmosphere like in Main Street Tap House?
It's warm. It's cozy. The bar is large and it's so comfortable to sit at. I chose to sit there. They've got some high top tables. They are your go-to Ravens bar. So if you want to watch some football games, that is the place where these locals like to hang out.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool vibe to go in there and feel just like I was at home in Ocean City.
Wow, that's cool.
And their crab cakes, they're creamy, they're light, there's little to no filler, and they don't put vegetables.
Yeah.
I can't stand if somebody puts carrots in my crab cakes. They don't belong there.
We call that stretching the soup.
Yeah. Just give me exactly what I want. And I was really impressed. I will say, of course, it's market price, but absolutely delicious jumbo lump crab meat.
Yeah. Wow. You may have heard I had over at Casa Mia.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, they're supposed to come on, the owner and the chef. I was hoping it was going to be this week, but I'll wrangle them up maybe next week. They're busy. They run a business, and they were terrific. I'd like for you to try those sometime.
Absolutely.
Being a native of Maryland, Main Street Tap House, also in North Myrtle.
Yes.
And what's the address there? Do you have it?
You can find Main Street Tap House, 693 Main Street, North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Great. Excellent. And you go there for the crab cakes.
Yes.
What else you got?
I've got another crab spot, another local joint, definitely Maryland homegrown. And this is where I go for my Maryland steam crabs.
Oh, okay. Completely different.
Oh yeah. I want to sit there and I want to pick and have a good time. You know, they stretch out that
oh yeah, butcher paper.
Butcher paper.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They've got that butcher paper spread out. It's got crabs all over it. It's really fun. It just took me back home to Ocean City when I'm, on my back deck with my family.
Interesting that you brought this up. But my family, when I was growing up in New Jersey, we would do that once in a while. But my mother used to make spaghetti with crab sauce, and we would do the fresh crabs in a pot of marinara, which is still one of my favorite sauces, and cook it for hours, blah, blah, blah. And when we were done using the sauce for the pasta after a couple of days, we then did the same thing with the crabs on a table, and they had the sauce all over them.
Ooh.
But let me ask you your opinion on this. Some of my local fishing captain friends, they just will not deal with crabs. They call it labor intensive. But I try to explain to them, and it's more than that, isn't it? It's
the whole. I mean, whether it's peeling shrimp, whether you're cracking open an oyster or some clams, cracking open crabs.
Yeah.
It is a fun time. And it's a fun event, and it's kind of why I really like the Chinese culture, the Korean culture when it comes to communal meals.
right.
Because on the Eastern Shore, cracking crabs is our communal meal.
Yeah.
You got your bucket of hush puppies,
And what was the name of that restaurant?
45th Avenue Crab House and Bar.
And that's what they're famous for.
Yes. That's another one in North Myrtle.
In North Myrtle.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
To go along with their crabs, they've got that J.O. seasoning, and usually Old Bay gets mistaken for J.O.
Right.
So it's got that hard rock salt. I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But their raw oysters are actually sourced locally as well as their crabs. And my friend, who you might know, Amy Everhart, Myrtle Beach Foodie Babe.
The Myrtle Beach Foodie Babe. We love her here
Yes.
talking about food.
Her and I went together and had their raw oysters. And I think she even talked about this before with you. She picked up on more of the briny and the saltiness of their oysters that were sourced here. And I picked up more on the sweet.
Yeah.
I'm so used to the Chesapeake Bay and how salty that is.
Yeah.
That down here, the water just tastes a little different.
Yeah.
I think it tastes a little sweeter down here.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be less salt content. I'll ask my fishing boat captain friends. No, they know that kind of thing. Okay. So that's your go-to dishes for the 45th Avenue Crab House and Bar.
Yes.
Or is there other things that you get? Or you go there?
Oh, their Maryland crab soup was delicious.
Oh.
It's different than your cream of crab. This Maryland crab is a tomato based, and it's got vegetables. It's very hearty.
Oh, almost like a Manhattan clam chowder.
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
It's wonderful.
I think I'm one of the few people that actually likes Manhattan clam chowder better than New England.
New England,
clam.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow, cool. Okay, next restaurant.
This one is a little hole in the wall food truck.
Favorite kind.
And it's actually located right next to my office.
Mhm.
I work right off of 501
Yeah.
across from that Tanger Outlets. And in between a Dollar General and a Waffle House, you've got this taqueria.
Wow.
And
It's a truck.
It's a truck.
Is it always there?
It's usually always there. Sometimes I direct message their social media to find out if they're, not coming that day.
But for the most part.
But for the most part,
yeah.
they are working, I believe, 6 days a week. I think they're off on Sunday.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I go here for lunch more times than not just because of the convenience, but you've got the price factor, and then it's just so delicious.
Yeah.
I typically get
Hold on. What are they called? You're getting too excited about this food truck that you love so much.
taqueria Mi Lindo.
Mi Lindo. I love, what is that? I love, there must be another word. Mi Lindo Huichapan, which I think from my 40 years in Southern California, where I learned very little Spanish, I think it means my beautiful place, I think. Anyway, what do you get there when you go?
Typically, I get 4 steak tacos, classic, with onions and cilantro, and their house-made flour tortillas.
Oh, wow.
It's to die for. And then their homemade salsa. The verde salsa, it's a lot more milder than their red salsa.
Mm-hmm.
I do prefer a spicier salsa, but their verde, it's so creamy. I don't know how they make it, but that creaminess goes so well with their steak.
With the steak. Yeah. Now their red salsa, is that more saucy or is it more like a pico de gallo?
It's more saucy.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Spicy.
And it's hot.
Yeah.
I think it's got some habaneros in there.
Wow.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, steak tacos. Oh, wow.
And you have to get 4 because 3, I'm not full enough.
Yeah. Wow, that's terrific. Is there any other items you've tried there?
Oh, yeah. I like the fajitas locas. So when my boyfriend and I go out, we usually get fajitas nachos, and we love that cheese and the steak and the peppers and onions, and they do it so amazingly, and they top it with a crema. And it's just so pretty. I mean, they package it in those styrofoam, but it doesn't matter. They make the dish look so beautiful. Oh, wow. It's hard to eat because it's just so pretty.
Have you ever posted any pictures of that?
Oh, absolutely. I did. I recently did a review about a month or 2 ago.
Yeah, well, you're killing me here. Oh, man. You started talking about those salsas on the steak tacos. Oh, killing me. Okay, what else?
All right. Closer to home for you here in Murrells Inlet.
Hey, don't remember. I'll drive 2 hours for good food.
I fell in love with Russell's Seafood Grill.
That's been around for a while.
A long time.
And my good buddy, Jack Gregory, was telling me just the other day, he says, we have to go over to Russell's. Tell us about it.
I can't exactly remember their deal that I had. I think it was Dollar Oyster Night or something.
I remember that. Yeah. And I don't know if they still do it. Maybe they do it at different times of the year. But anyway, tell us about it.
Their oysters were incredible. So I naturally asked where they got them from. And of course, my favorite place to go, 7 Seas Seafood.
Yeah.
And they were sourced from the Chesapeake in Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and that's why I fell in love with them so much. I like that.
Did you know that before you had them?
No.
But you were there. You said, hey, wow, these are good. You looked into where they were sourced from, and turns out from your native land.
Yeah.
Wow. What else? You have anything else there at Russell's?
Digging for some oysters.
Yeah.
I was just craving some raw oysters, and it came up on Google #1. So I drove down here.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so let's do a rundown of the restaurants you just talked about so the listeners can hear again.
Yeah. We've got Buoys on the Boulevard in North Myrtle. You've got to try their trio appetizer, and definitely their coconut shrimp.
Okay.
Then you've got Main Street Tap House. You've got to try those Maryland-style crab cakes. And then maybe pair it with a Bloody Mary if you're interested, because that was also delicious.
Wow.
Then you've got 45th Avenue Crab House. You've got to have their traditional Maryland steamed crabs and their raw oysters.
Yeah, and you bring some people with you for that, right?
Yeah, have some
so much
fun. Then you've got Taqueria Mi Lindo Huichapan, and you've got to try their fajitas locas, the chamoy tajin mango, and their steak tacos.
Yeah.
And then finally, definitely get over to Russell's Seafood Grill and have their raw oysters.
Nobody makes me hungry like the Content Food Critic, Sophia Edens. It's always such a pleasure having you come in. And I know not just me, but all the listeners will be waiting for your routine. Sophia, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to Talking About Food. It's going to wrap it up for this episode 27. I just wanted to recap myself. Don't forget about Anto's Pizza Romano, an Italian market over in Conway. And of course, I'm sure you were taking notes while Sophia Edens was explaining some of her, I wouldn't say recent finds, just some of the things that jumped out at her. Well, once again, what I love about some of the guests that I have on the show, we've become personal friends, and they know that they can stop by anytime and we'll go into the studio because they have found some interesting restaurants that they want to talk about. And Sophia Edens, of course, is one of them. And she's been cooking a lot too. Notice she posted some photos of roast chicken, and she was explaining to me how she used the bones for stock and making other dishes from that, Asian dishes, some Vietnamese pho, I think she was telling me about, which only leads me to say what I usually say when I sign off, that, we got some great restaurants here, but if you're cooking at home, remember that you are your family's private chef. Thanks for listening.